So, folks, I don't know how much you guys have been paying attention to other countries around the world because, frankly, it's been an election year here in America, and I know a lot of folks are really, really focused on American politics and the America. It's a very America-centric political ecosystem here in our media. And I wanted to take the opportunity where, while people are kind of in a state of shock and panic about Donald Trump winning the 2024 election, and please, none of you crazies who are talking about like how he stole the election. We're not doing that. There's no evidence of that. Stop. Okay. Anyway, one of the countries that I really want to pay attention to, because I think it shows exactly the kind of problem that Democrats are running into and how it can be overcome. And that country is, of course, Mexico. Now, for those of you who are not entirely sure why I'm talking about Mexico, well, here's a piece from Al Jazeera here, talking about the former president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who is otherwise known as Amlo. His nickname is his acronym. It's actually kind of cute. But basically, AMLO was an incredibly populist figure. He raised the minimum wage by quite a significant margin across all of Mexico. He also nationalized oil. He did a lot of major infrastructure projects. There's a lot he did right to kind of tap into this populist well of support. And there is like also an element of like centralization going on, a lot of centralizing of power that maybe raised some eyebrows, especially like mobilizing a National Guard, stuff like that. But by and large, I think he's pretty good. He's pretty good. He's done a really good job. Now, one thing, of course, he was president during COVID, and so crime numbers shot way up. Record amounts of murders, violence, etc. in Mexico. But one of the things that's really important to note here is that he delivered. He delivered for his constituents. And, well, it's pretty interesting. So let's just take a look. What does he leave behind before we get to who comes now? Who is now in charge? With Claudia Sheinbaum. Okay? Let's see. What do we got here? Yeah, he effectively compared his tenure as president to previous periods in the country's history: independence from Spain, the era of liberal reform, and the Mexican Revolution. And basically, they're trying to fundamentally change what Mexican politics are and what kinds of things the government does for the people in a positive way. So, let's see. The most positive area of AMLO's administration has been labor reforms and poverty and inequality reduction. Basically, they had a program called Hugs Not Bullets. And the purpose of it basically being raise the minimum wage, address the underlying reasons for crime, i.e. poverty and homelessness. By addressing those, you can then reduce crime. And crime has been going down, but again, it's been slow going off of COVID. And so like crime's been going down, but not enough time has kind of passed since the reforms to really gauge increase in alleviating poverty and crime going down. So that's kind of where the numbers are on that. But about 5.1 million people left poverty behind between 2018 and 2022, the most important reduction in poverty in more than 20 years. 5.1 million people. That's a lot of people. That's a significant degree of people. That's pretty pog, indeed. Just out of curiosity, just Googling here. Let's see. The number of people living in poverty in Mexico accounted for over 36% of the country's population in 2020. In that year, it was estimated that more than 46 million people in Mexico lived in a situation of poverty. Yeah. So basically, single-handedly decreased poverty by like 10, 15%. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So basically, that's one of the things that basically got the entire country of Mexico united behind, I believe the Morena party, which is the dominant party in Mexico at the moment. Let's see. López Obrador also expanded programs such as pension payments and cash transfers, and it is still spending the lowest of all OECD countries on social spending. So, like, there is still a lot to be done when it comes to revitalizing kind of the social tapestry of Mexico, but the impulse, the momentum is in the right direction here. Okay? It's very interesting to see. And to give you guys an idea, Mexico's minimum wage rises to 7,508 pesos per month, or $429 in 2024. And let's just see. As of January 1st, 2024, minimum wage in Mexico will officially be 249 pesos per day, around $14, or 7,508 pesos per month. And let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, in the Treasury Room of the National Palace, he explained that the minimum wage in 2018, the year of Enrique Peña Nieto's 6-year term, was 88 pesos per day. And next year it will rise to 249. So basically, people in Mexico were earning dirt for their labor, and this rising of the minimum wage is by like quadrupled the amount they were being paid. Like, this is the kind of thing that cuts through the bullshit, guys. This is the kind of economic policy that cuts through the misinformation, and at the end of the day, you feel the change. People feel the change on the ground in Mexico when they suddenly have a minimum wage that's like tripled or quadrupled. Like, that's what cuts through like the messaging bullshit of like conservative disinformation. And that is why Claudia Sheinbaum rode to victory. Okay?
Tengo claro que nuestra guía es el bienestar y la felicidad del pueblo. Tengo claro que el segundo piso de la cuarta transformación lo vamos a hacer todos y todas.
Basically, she's saying this is going to be the second part of the fourth transformation, so she's carrying on Amlo's legacy. And I think she's gonna do a good job. She has a PhD in energy. It's energy something, not energy conservation. It's something energy efficiency, something like that. And so she's pledged to kind of fundamentally transform Mexico's approach to fossil fuels, renewable energy, etc., while also expanding on a lot of AMLO's social programs, continuing to raise the minimum wage, which AMLO was able to do without overturning the Mexican economy. Like, basically, most people just made more money, and corporations pocketed less. Like, but with minimal damage to actual economic activity, which is pretty great.
Por ello, me comprometo con ustedes que entregaré mi conocimiento, mi alma, mi vida y lo mejor de mí misma por el bienestar del pueblo de México.
Basically, she's pledging her, like, everything she is, her entire being, her soul to the people of Mexico.
Me comprometo con ustedes a defender siempre a México.
Also, what you're seeing is her swearing-in ceremony, which she did. Basically, the people putting her and anointing her presidency are doing so in traditional indigenous fashion. And I think that's pretty fucking wonderful. I think that's great. It actually pissed off the Catholic Church. A bunch of people wrote op-eds about how, Christians in Mexico really have a bone to pick with Claudia Sheinbaum for having her presidency heralded by indigenous people.
Comprometo a enaltecer el amor, la verdad, la honestidad y la fraternidad y a condenar cualquier forma de discriminación. Estoy aquí para comprometerme con ustedes, para decirle al pueblo de México, en esta plaza maravillosa, corazón de la patria, en la que tantas veces nos reunimos con Andrés Manuel López Obrador y nos seguiremos reuniendo, que no les voy a fallar.
She's also Jewish, which is pretty cool.
Me comprometo con ustedes a no mentir, a no robar y a nunca traicionar al pueblo de México. Me comprometo a seguir haciendo historia.
It's real good. Just her making a series of promises to the people of Mexico. And yeah, it is a historic victory for her. Like, she got, like, one of the largest degrees of, like, democratic support of any political candidate in Mexican history. It's really great.
Mexico City's packed Zocalo Square welcomed its country's new leader, Claudia Sheinbaum, on Sunday. In a landslide victory, the 61-year-old Nobel Prize-winning climate scientist and former mayor of the capital won Mexico's general election.
Her nickname, by the way, is La Doctora, which I think is great.
For the first time in 200 years, a woman has reached the presidency of the Republic.
A major step for Mexico, a country known for its macho culture and home to the world's second biggest Roman Catholic population, which for years pushed more traditional values and roles for women.
No llegó sola. Llegamos todas.
I didn't get here on my own. We all got here together, our female heroes, who created the nation, our female ancestors, our mothers, our daughters, and our granddaughters.
Felicito a todas y a todos los mexicanos.
I congratulate all Mexicans that by participating in the election demonstrated that
Yes.
Mexico is a democratic country with peaceful elections.
She is a socialist climate scientist who won the presidency of Mexico. with one of the most overwhelming Democratic shows of support in the world. So yeah, she's pretty good. I feel like, if anything, this is the complete and utter antidote to all of the poison neoliberals have been trying to feed the American public about how oh, well, Joe Biden was the most worker-friendly president. It's like, nah, if Kamala Harris had run a worker-friendly campaign, had run with actual worker, values and priorities at heart here, she would be running into major, she'd be running into a similar victory as Claudia Sheinbaum. But that isn't what we got. This is a really good example of why catering to the working class works, and how you can cater to the working class without sacrificing your soul and being transphobic and xenophobic. You can cater to the working class without abandoning your values.
Elections.
Elecciones pacíficas.
With potentially more than 60% of the vote, according to a rapid sample count released by Mexico's electoral authority late on Sunday, it would be the most support won by a Mexican presidential election candidate since the end of one-party rule in 2000. Supporters took to the streets in celebration.
Today we took an important step at a global level to get closer to the Mexico we want. A free Mexico for the elderly, women, people with disabilities, gay people like me, for everyone.
Her main opponent, Xochitl Galvez, conceding defeat with around 26 to 28% of the vote, according to preliminary results.
No podemos cerrar los ojos al hecho.
We cannot ignore the fact that this was an unequal process, marked by the intervention of the president and the use of social programs.
Yeah, notice how, her excuse for not winning is that, oh, they were mean by, providing for the people who put them into office. Oh no. How unfair. How unfair that the party of working class people provided for working class people, and the working class people liked that and continued to vote for them. You're rigging the election. How dare you better the lives of most of the people in your country? You're rigging the election by doing that.
This has also been the most violent electoral process in the history of our country.
38 candidates have been murdered during the campaign.
Yeah, we're going to stop right there because, yeah, this is a huge problem. But as far as I can tell, having looked into this, this is not the political parties are assassinating one another. That doesn't seem to be what's happening. It's literally just the cartel violence. The cartel violence is crazy. And the cartels have been assassinating candidates that are, less friendly to them. In one case, they killed the candidates on both political parties. They are really dangerous. And so part of what the Amlo administration was trying to do was to undercut gang and cartel support by alleviating poverty, making people less likely to make decisions that would have them fall in with gangs. And also, throughout his presidency, he slowly cracked down more and more militarily while continuing with those social spending programs. So that kind of seems how it's gonna play out in the foreseeable future, continuing under Sheinbaum, but we'll see, obviously.
Reinforcing massive security problems the country faces, and 2 people were killed at polling stations in the Puebla state on Sunday. Sheinbaum has vowed to improve the situation, but has given few details. She has also promised to expand the welfare policies that have driven her predecessor López Obrador's popularity and contributed to her triumph. However, a hefty budget deficit and low economic growth will make it tricky. Her agenda, though, will be boosted by ample support in Congress. Rapid count results showed her ruling party Morena and allies on track for a possible supermajority in both houses of Congress. She will take office on October 1st.
Yeah, so, like, you know, she's in office. Like, what's... also, just more on the murder here. Like, this piece in Semaphore goes into it a bit. But, like... This has kind of been what the graph has been like. The murder rate has like tripled in like the last, 15 years, 10 years or 20 years, I guess. It's a lot, but as you can see, like 2020 hits, and then, frankly, then it starts going down again. So I'd be interested to see if this continues to go down, given the social spending in Mexico. A lot of people have tried to attack the Morena party and Sheinbaum and Amlo by criticizing a lack of a militarized response, but that militarized response did wind up kicking back into gear, largely because these cartels are pretty well armed. They're pretty capable of inflicting violence and holding their own against the government forces, and pretty scary stuff. But I do think if they keep up with the social safety net, strengthening that, it's going to be a lot harder for cartels to operate. Also, worth pointing out that part of this uptick here and the sustained level of murder also could be attributable to like a large-scale cocaine struggle, basically over control over the cocaine trade internationally. So like that definitely impacted like murder rates in Mexico. Like there have been countries across Latin America and also a couple countries in Europe have pretty strong gang and cartel aspects to the cocaine trade, and there's been like an international struggle for turf. It's a whole thing. We're not getting into that right now, but that's something to be aware of when we're looking at murder rates and homicides in Mexico. But yeah, another string of political candidate assassinations has many worried that Mexican democracy is backsliding. Violence does not distinguish between party, ideology, or positions, wrote Senator Claudia Ruiz Maceo for El Universal. After candidates for both the ruling and opposition parties were murdered on the campaign trail in drug trafficking hotspots in the last month. The rise in political violence means officials are less willing to stand up to drug cartels, and the government is surrendering democracy to criminals. Yeah, the hugs not bullets approach has been criticized, but they are... I think they're starting to use a kind of a hybrid model. We'll see if that continues under Sheinbaum. Something to be aware of here. Let's learn a little bit about Sheinbaum. Largely, I wanted to highlight this because, frankly, it's kind of hard to get information on what's happening in Mexico and what Sheinbaum's policies are. Like, I don't know if it's just that Google is broken, but like all of the results are terrible. Like, she was elected president over a month ago, or inaugurated as president over a month ago. Like, why it shouldn't be this hard to find information about her. So let's just take a look here. She got her BS in physics, 1989, then studied energy engineering and got her PhD in that. She largely governs in a secular way, though she has Jewish ancestors. And let's see. She completed her doctoral research at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in California, which is a very prestigious organization. And also basically grew up in kind of the activist community. So like she's legit. Like, she's been a socialist for a long time. Okay? Good stuff. But yeah, she won around 60% of the vote. Crazy. First female president in more than 200 years of independence. Went from being mayor of Mexico City. Like, she's very accomplished, and it just kind of remains to be seen, can she handle the presidency? And I do think that she will be able to do it. Oh, come on, Vox. Doing me dirty. Here, Sheinbaum targets $40 billion energy transition plan. One of the large-scale projects of Sheinbaum is to kind of move Mexico into renewable energy. And in order to do that, she's freeing up a lot of capital to, like, flow into these public-private partnerships, which I know aren't ideal, but also one of the things and kind of the tightrope she's walking here is that in order to kind of counteract the social program spending, she wants to facilitate investment of private capital into Mexico. So these private-public partnerships are designed to facilitate that. And it is also, I think, going to make renewable energy more viable in Mexico. Currently, a lot of the efforts around energy in Mexico have centered around building a new refinery. Not sure if it says what it's called in here. Yeah, we don't have the name of the refinery. Damn. But essentially, this is all designed to move away from oil, which has also been nationalized and used for kind of the general good. It's part of what has fueled the social welfare. And I do think that it's extraordinarily important and good that she is moving away from oil and investing into moving away from oil, largely because, well, basically, if you build a bunch of social safety programs off of the price of oil, if the price of oil craters for any kind of reason, your country is screwed. Like we've seen it happen time and time again. It's what did in Yugoslavia. It's what did in Venezuela to a large degree. It is something that happens over and over again. The oil boom is seen as like an infinite money well, and it's just not that. So seeing her pivot away from this is good for the long-term survival of this social safety net. It's also good for the long-term survival of the planet and our species, to say the least. So I think she's uniquely positioned here to do some extraordinarily good work. But, one thing that I think is right now very interesting is this judicial reform. Now, the judicial reform that people are talking about is essentially that Mexico voted to democratically elect judges, and essentially the entire judiciary in Mexico is currently rebelling against that notion. And in the next week or so, it seems as if their highest court is going to actually decide on whether or not that reform is constitutional. If it is constitutional, then all judges in the country are going to be elected. If it is not constitutional, then basically it's going to be a constitutional crisis where the question is, will Claudia Sheinbaum follow the Constitution, or will she just, overrule the highest court? We'll see. There's also been a compromise kicked around by members of the judiciary of like, hey, maybe just put the highest court up for election instead of all of the other courts. But why are the judges deciding this? Well, basically because the judges don't want their jobs to be elected. And there is some reasoning that essentially they don't want to have cartels running judges in elections and thereby rigging the legal process. That is one of the arguments that at least makes sense to me to a degree. But we'll kind of see what happens. Yeah. Neat. She used to do research at LBNL in the 90s, developing energy-related stuff I do for work. That's nice, Toas. But yeah, so like that's kind of where she's at right now. And well, it's also just like the policies going on in Mexico right now are real good. Basically, they're putting out, they're committing to building 1 million new homes and offering 0 interest mortgages to people who want to buy homes. Like these are the kinds of programs that help struggling people out. Like, yeah. Sheinbaum has launched a comprehensive housing initiative to address the country's housing deficit by building 1 million homes and offering 0 interest mortgages. The programs aimed at supporting vulnerable groups focuses on female-led households, young people, indigenous communities, and senior citizens. The announcement is a fulfillment of Sheinbaum's campaign promise to create affordable housing and promote equitable urban development. The focus of this program is to provide affordable housing to those in greatest need, especially young Mexicans, Sheinbaum stated, contrasting her approach with previous right-wing administrations that prioritized profit-driven projects over public needs. Yeah. So, like, this is the kind of policy that people understand. When you say, hey, you can buy a home for way cheaper if you're a struggling young couple, or if you're a single mom, or if you're like, you know, like this is policy that people understand and can get behind. Also, basically, this is the Atlantic. You know, number one reason why you shouldn't read the Atlantic right here. Any byline from David Frum. What a colossal cad. Women can be autocrats too. She writes. He writes of a woman who's going to be housing 1 million plus people and getting people into homes. Was that a 0 interest or a 0 down payment? It was 0 interest. It saves working people hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like it is a program that she's putting in place that will save young people so much money, it's ridiculous. Yeah, autocrat is when people do thing I don't like. Exactly. Ay. Yeah, also worth noting that basically when I tried to do research for this story, all I could find was stuff like from like Pacific Council on International Policy or the Woodrow Wilson think tank, or like basically most of what is getting written about Claudia Sheinbaum's administration right now seems to be coming from like think tanks that are not that are really centered on, you know, focusing Mexico as a client state, as like a state that should be subservient to the United States, and you know, all of these welfare programs in Mexico, they're really infringing on American profits. You know, the kind of think tanks that prioritize thinking along those lines. And yeah, it's like when you see this type of article, I wish I was telling a happier story about Claudia Sheinbaum. the reason he doesn't think there's a happy story to be told here is because he's approaching it from like an American that wants to make money off of, you know, the people of Mexico. Like that is like here's the Pacific Council on International Policy, right? Who do they have in leadership? Let's take a look. Oh, wow. Huh. Some lot of people, former Utah governor, US ambassador to China. Just a lot of people from insider politics that you probably haven't heard of if you're not paying attention to Washington D.C. Let's see, what kind of activities do they engage in? They've hosted a number of influential speakers, including Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, Condoleezza Rice, George W. Bush, Eric Garcetti, CIA Director Leon Panetta, James Mattis. You know, just like a cavalcade of conservative folks. All terrible people, indeed. Also, man, if this isn't an indictment, example of the council's programs are the Mexico Initiative and the Guantanamo Bay Observer Program. Yeah, they definitely did a great job making sure nothing uncouth happened there. Good job, guys. They're really nailing that Guantanamo Bay situation. God. It's really incredible, man. Also, can I just say, a lot of when I was doing research, so many of the articles were weirdly weighted like this. Triumph and a broken promise. Andrés Manuel López Obrador vowed to transform Mexico. But did he? Poverty fell after salary hikes and reform, but AMLO did not deliver for the 43 students disappeared from Ayotzinapa. Ayotzinapa? Yeah. Yeah, basically arguing that, let's see here. You gotta scroll all the way down the page. López Obrador doubled the minimum wage without creating macroeconomic instability, said Viri Rios, an economist. He showed us that there was space, and maybe still is, to increase wages in Mexico. These concrete results were augmented by AMLO's political narrative. It was very simple. He said the country has been captured by elites and that they had been corruptly benefiting a very small set of the population, said Rios, which is obviously the case in Mexico, one of the most unequal countries in the world. You don't get there by accident. By putting inequality at the center of his discourse and acting on it, AMLO restored large parts of the population to confidence in democracy. By 2023, 61% of Mexicans said they had faith in their national government, compared with 29% when López Obrador took office. Literally doubled the number of people who believed in the concept of democracy by simply providing material benefit to them. And it's just so wild that this is buried, several paragraphs down. And it's very interesting to me. And like the rest of the article is just like, yeah, but he didn't solve this problem of 43 missing students. And it's like, yeah, that's not good, obviously, but like, he's the president. He's supposed to fix the macroeconomic. Fixing the macroeconomy is kind of like the purview of a president, whereas finding missing people is more the purview of like maybe a national task force or something. But like, being kidnapped by cartels doesn't usually result in being found very quickly. Good golly. I find it hard to pin that on him specifically. That just seems like a point of a point of like, yeah, they need to do better about the cartel violence, obviously, but like they've known that. It's not a new issue to bring up. Plot twist, Mexico actually has a population of 250. So 43 people is more than 15%. Damn, it's been a massive charade this entire time. But yeah. Basically, this is how the judicial crisis in Mexico is being reported on by UK outlet The Guardian. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible decision to elect your judges. I don't think that's a terrible decision. I think maybe it'd be a lot easier if instead you elected like the highest judges in the land, but that's just me. Yeah, the Guardian's reporting on this is absolutely terrible. Like, I was reading through this. What it was stood out to me. Morena already has a level of political power not seen for decades in Mexico after its landslide election victory in June gave it a supermajority in Congress and control of enough state legislatures to change the constitution at will. It has passed a whirl of amendments since, including judicial reform in September. And it's like, oh, did they deliver for the people and then ride into political power? That's literally how the system is supposed to work. Like, it's insane to me that framing this as a failure of the system is just not the case. You're supposed to be able to deliver for the people who elect you. That's how democracy is supposed to work. And when you don't do that, everything gets fucked up. Like that's when instead politics begins catering towards the wealthy. That's the beginning of oligarchy. Yeah, you can actually deliver on good policy. It's crazy, I know. And then, of course, it has also spooked the markets, leading to the peso to depreciate more than 15% against the dollar and drawn rare public criticism from the U.S., Mexico's largest trade partner, which said it jeopardized democracy and rule of law in the country. And it's like, having more democracy in your country is jeopardizing the democracy? Make it make sense. Getting rid of non-elected positions and just making the judicial branch also elected? That is the death of democracy? Make it make sense. Explain it, because it really just sounds like you think the economic hiccups of of this are bad, not that democracy is being undermined here. But the line, it must go up. Yeah. Yeah, here's the New York Times. Mr. Lopez Obrador, Ms. Sheinbaum, and their allies have argued that the redesign will help eradicate endemic corruption and nepotism in the courts, because again, this is one of the key components of the corruption in the government, which is that if you are able to buy enough government officials, you can then have a judge installed that's loyal to you, and then people are just putting their sons and daughters into judicial office. That's why they want to make them democratically electable positions, because there's already political corruption, And that's the political corruption is being amplified by also being able to get control of the courts relatively easily. At least in a democracy, you actually have to lobby people. You actually have to like put more money and effort in. So, yeah. Let's see here. For 2 months, thousands of workers in the federal court system have been on strike to protest the overhaul. There have already been more than 500 legal challenges to the measure, and several federal judges have ruled in favor of suspending its approval and implementation. 8 of the nation's 11 Supreme Court justices said this week that they would step down from their posts rather than run for election next summer. So far, the president and her allies have largely ignored the legal challenges. Yeah. In October, Congress passed a bill that would prevent any legal challenges to constitutional amendments, like the judicial overhaul, on anything but procedural grounds. After most state legislatures approved that measure, the president published it in the government's official gazette on Thursday night, making it law. Legal scholars say that this could allow lawmakers to reshape the Constitution without any judicial review, even from the Supreme Court. Let's see here. Yeah, next week, the Supreme Court will consider a resolution to invalidate crucial parts of the judicial overhaul. Yeah. If 8 of the 11 justices vote to strike down those elements, including the election of local and federal judges, they cannot legally take effect, legal experts said. Moreno officials have already said that lawmakers would disregard such a ruling. So basically, yeah, like there's a political showdown going here. And it will be interesting to see how it goes. I don't think, though, that, like, electing judges is bad. Frankly, I haven't really heard in any of this even disparaging coverage of this situation. I haven't even heard, like, what is the argument against this overhaul other than you don't like it? Other than you think that it will somehow make it more vulnerable to corrupting influences than the system you already have that is demonstrably vulnerable to corrupt influences. You know, like... So it does look like it's going to go into a weird direction. Defying the justices would thrust the country into uncharted territory, for sure. Yeah. Let's see here. The overall also presents potential political spoilers for legislators who analysts say may be able to influence the election of powerful judges with the authority to determine the outcome of business disputes worth billions. But dismissing the groundswell of judicial challenges and possibly defying the Supreme Court itself would create serious problems for the new president. As part of the overhaul, voters would elect about 7,000 new judges over 2 years, a massive undertaking that could be expensive and difficult to organize. Sorting through that process while fending off hundreds of challenges to the law itself would almost certainly drain energy from the rest of the president's sprawling agenda, including her promise to curb drug cartels' rampant violence and push forward with a clean energy transition. Honestly, like, this is maybe the best argument here that, like, by trying to fight any Supreme Court decision in Mexico on this, that it would, like, take energy and effort away from any of her larger scale plans. So, like, this might be one of those things that she, like, capitulates on and, like, this reform doesn't go through. But, like, I think that might be how this goes. We'll see. We'll see. But I do think that this is really interesting. And I just wanted to share with you guys what I learned about Claudia Sheinbaum, because she seems pretty great. Mexico seems to be going in a good direction. And I think it's worth paying attention to basically a massive case study in how liberal Democrats saying that the election was lost because trans people and
fucking pronouns
are wrong, like, demonstrably. And we have an example literally right next to us in Mexico. So I don't know. I just found it all very interesting and I wanted to share it with you. There we go. Segment done.